So today, on this grey day, we're out here at Northeast Helicopters here in Connecticut, the largest helicopter school in the area.
Yeah, I'd agree with that one.
You agree with that one?
At least this area, definitely in this town.
And you guys fly mostly R22s?
Correct, yep. We got 3 R22s and 1 R44 currently online.
And that's what we're here to fly today, the R22, the most popular training helicopter in the world. There's other helicopters coming online for training, but I think the R22 is going to remain the most popular because of the price point.
Yep.
And it is a great training helicopter. It is, if you can learn to fly in an R22, I originally learned to fly in an R22, you can transition to any other helicopter pretty much with these. Would you not agree, Dan?
Yeah, it seems to be the case, so, yep.
So this is Dan, he's one of the CFIs here, and you have been flying with Northeast for how long?
Since April.
Since April?
A whole lot of time, a whole lot of time, but I already got 500 hours.
500 hours, nice work.
Yep.
And you love the R22?
Yeah, this is what I learned on. It's kind of what I know at this point. I do have a decent amount of time in the R44, which is very similar. But yeah, it's like a go-kart. It's pure. It's direct drive and direct input on everything. Feedback. It's lightweight and keeps you honest in the winds. Keeps you honest in any way that you fly it. So. And
just like any aircraft, it's got its positives and negatives.
Yep.
Another popular aircraft in training is the Schweizer 300, and you guys have a 300 in the hangar, and we'll go into the hangar in a minute and have a quick look around that, because a lot of schools still use the 300 as well. And there are, there's different schools of thought. There's no right or wrong when it comes to training aircraft. It's just the Schweizer is a little different. It's a bigger aircraft. It's a more solid feel, but it doesn't have a governor. It's not as fast. It's,
Yeah, they all got their advantages and disadvantages. So
we'll pop into the hangar right now and have a quick look around the 300. All right, let's have a quick look around the Schweizer 300 before we get on to the R22, because this was one of the most popular helicopters to get your flight training in. They're becoming a little rarer now, and it's a little, everybody has their thoughts on which is a better training helicopter between the R22 and the 300, but they both have their pluses and minuses.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Yep. And a lot of it, layout-wise, they're pretty much a similar layout helicopter. The engine, transmission on top. Helicopters are generally laid out pretty much the same, but definitely these two, there's a lot of similarities. Yep. You have a belt system.
The belt system, and to engage the rotors, you're pulling. There's a little device down here that's pulling this taut, and that's how the rotor's engaged. That's the clutch, basically.
Yep, and I'd say probably one of the biggest differences is really in the rotor head. It being fully articulated 3-bladed system, whereas the Robinson's the 2-bladed teeter hinge. So that's probably one of the biggest differences. I think the rest, what you see, is really just comes down to when it was designed. We're looking at a 50s design versus a 70s design.
But there's a lot of things that people like about the 300. The 300 is a lot roomier aircraft.
Oh yeah.
Far roomier. It's got the cyclics, the configuration of the cyclics. You don't have the T-bar cyclic like you have in the Robinson aircraft. People like this, and of course, it's just a comfortable aircraft. What it doesn't have is a governor. So what the governor does, of course, is it manages the engine RPM for you. This has got what's known as a correlator. Yep. And the correlator, as you pull up, the collective adds a bit of throttle, but really you have to manage the throttle yourself in these aircraft, which is an important skill to have, but becoming less relevant in today's helicopters.
Yeah, but my argument would be is, though we have the governors in the R22s, they can fail. There can be issues with them. And certain emergency situations, if you shut off all the electrical power, we have bypasses to keep critical instruments, but we do lose the governor and the warning horn. So while you learn managing the throttle on a Schweizer, you still very much have to be able to manipulate it in the R22.
But your favorite, of course, is the R22.
Yeah, that's what I learned on, so it's just a biased opinion.
And we're back out here, and we're going to do a walk around the R22, and Dan's going to show us the main features, and then we'll take it for a spin.
All right. Oh, well, so start with one of the most important things.
The telltale?
Our coordinator.
That's right. And you see it on many aircraft still, so.
I'd like to point out to people that the F-14 Tomcat had a trim string on the nose.
Oh, really?
Yep, because they wanted the pilot to be able to fly with his eyes outside. So.
And can you explain to everybody what it's used for?
Yeah, so basically, when you think of an aircraft flying, what we want to make sure is that we're not cockeyed, if you will, not yawed going into the, as we travel. So these will basically, if we are twisted to, say, this side, then it would push the strings up unevenly.
Right.
So what we do is adjust the pedals in forward flight, the anti-torque pedals, to keep the trim strings straight up.
It's a very high-tech solution.
Yep, and the other very important thing that they can tell us on approaches and stuff is whether we're still in ETL.
Right.
An ETL being pretty much one of the prime principles that allows helicopters to...
And what will the string show?
So if they're up, we know we're in ETL.
Yep.
As they start to get lazy, that could be like a warning.
Yep.
And if you don't have your descent rate under control and say a steep approach, that might be your warning to
Right.
fix your situation.
Right. The rest of the front end, we got some lights.
Yep.
Vents.
A couple dead bugs in the past couple weeks.
Yep.
This would be the cabin vent, which
Okay.
we'll probably use once we get going.
The air conditioning system in
Oh,
this
yeah.
aircraft. Have you ever flown them at night?
Yep, I have. I got a fair amount of night hours. They're I wouldn't want to fly it with the windshield like this at night, but yeah, no, they're good.
Yep.
It also has heat as well, pulled off the off an exhaust manifold.
Okay.
This side we got basically the right seat. It's a right seat command ship. It's also solo only from the right seat due to CG limitations. Left controls.
Classic T-bar.
Yep, the teeter bar.
Love it or hate it.
Yeah, one of the funniest things to kind of not leave out of a new student is that this does nothing to the aircraft.
Right.
I made that mistake once, and I saw them trying to fix something by doing this. And
so as an instructor, you've pretty much got your arm in the air most of the time?
This is,
so you got slightly bigger muscles on that arm.
Yep, and needless to say. So, and then the other hand's always on the collective anyways. Yeah, and the nice thing about them is they made it, all the left side controls can be taken out. So if you were carrying a passenger or something, you don't want them anywhere near the controls. You still end up with the main bar right here in the center, but...
Yeah, I've seen 22s with conversions to a regular collective as well.
Yeah, I'm going to have to look into that one.
That must add weight though.
Oh yeah, it's got to. Anything you do to...
show us the luggage compartment while we're here?
Yep. Won't fit golf clubs, but...
Won't fit golf clubs, but... For your drug run into Mexico,
Yep,
no problem.
whatever you might need, as long as it's 50 pounds or less.
Okay.
In case the light students ends up putting ballast in there just to help them balance the ship out.
What are the big differences? This is a beta, so the later edition's called the Beta 2. They've got a different handle, don't they?
Yep, yeah, this I guess you call it the broom handle. It also has the old intercom panel. And that would be your transmit button, whereas they went to a more conventional with a finger trigger for push to talk.
But the layout really hasn't changed in the last 40 years, isn't it?
Yeah, they really haven't done any major updates. Just maybe avionics, stuff like that, gauges, different accessories, but
change the price.
Yeah, exactly. Basic design is still the same.
Yep.
You got the Lycoming, in this case the 0320 down here.
So this is a piston-powered aircraft.
Backwards if you think of it. Yeah, so this would be where the propeller would be for a similar piston airplane.
Yep.
And they basically mounted it backwards.
Right.
And then through the lower sheave, and when the belts are tensioned, that's what drives the upper drive line.
So the belts, this is the interesting thing about this, isn't it? It's run by belts.
Yep.
It's literally a belt-driven helicopter. So these...
Much more durable and much more well-designed belts than you're going to see on your car or anything like that.
Right.
And
there's 4 there. It looks like 2, but these are a double belt.
Yep. Yep, critical component in a sense, but...
So the engine turns the belt, which turns this drive shaft, which then goes into a transmission forward, isn't it?
Yep, and then also the shaft goes down the tail boom to the tail rotor transmission as well.
Right. So when you're doing your pre-flight, you're checking for overheats and so forth on this.
Yep, you got teletemps will tell you the highest temperature. The other thing we're doing is checking that all the fasteners, everything looks secure, no leaks. We got grease in here, we got fluid inside. The Sprag clutch, which is our freewheeling unit.
This is the cleanest R22 I've ever seen.
So as you can see, yeah, she's fresh from overhaul.
Yeah.
So as you can see here, it'll spin the drive shaft one way, but in the event of an engine failure, this is what allows us to freewheel and turn auto rotation.
Right, so auto rotation, engine stop turning, but the transmission can continue freewheeling.
Yep,
right.
Using the windmilling
Nice.
through the rotor blades, we can maintain rotor RPM and fly her in.
And so this big fan on the back is just like the R44. It's really for cooling the engine, like a old 911 Porsche.
Yep. Actually, I guess what Robinson does is they buy someone else's HVAC fan and then modify it to their specs.
Wow.
And then bolt it on the back of the engine.
And that's just blowing air over the...
Yep. Air gets pulled in here, pushed out through these top covers.
Yep.
And then down over the cylinders or the oil cooler right here.
Right.
As well as some tubes coming off here. You have a tube coming off here that goes to blow some air onto the main rotor transmission
And
to help with the cooling on that.
Is this orange for the cabin heat?
Yep.
Yep.
This one would be for the carburetor heat,
Yep.
which we're going to be running full today, looking at the visible moisture. This would be the fresh air intake. There's basically a slide valve that's what we'll be manipulating with the carb heat lever.
And can you explain the carb heat and why it's so necessary to have carb heat in these aircraft?
Basically, because of how a carburetor works, using that venturi, you get a drop in pressure as that air gets pulled up into the venturi. When you get that drop in pressure, temperature also drops as well. So any moisture that's in the air, like right now, could potentially get cooled to the freezing point and collect in the form of ice on basically the intake wall of the carburetor.
So the carb heat is pulling hot air from around the engine here to warm the carburetor.
Yep, warm the carburetor, but really it's warming the air to
Yep.
prevent it from getting to that cooling point.
Right.
And we'll probably see, you know, just looking at the carb heat gauge, you'll see that temperature get a little bit more stable and higher as some of that heat soak starts to get down to the carburetor.
And when I was training in R22s, that was just drummed into me every flight was carb heat on as soon as you're descending.
Yep,
That's
and there's,
the case?
oh yeah, very much so. I mean, they got three basic uses. One of them today is why we'll be full carb heat today, is visible moisture, unless this drops off soon. The other one would be anytime you're below 18 inches of manifold pressure, because what happens is you have too close of a gap that ice might form downstream from the sensor. And really the only other time would be when that gauge that we have for carb heat indicates in the yellow. So.
And why wouldn't you have carb heat on all the time?
Basically, hot air is going to rob engine power.
Right.
So for us here, at, field elevation's 253. We're pretty much at sea level. We do have wide margins, but everything we do as far as training, we train, as if, trying to be power critical.
And on a hot day, can you have a student forget to turn the carb heat and you can immediately notice the lack of power?
Oh yeah, well what I can do is I can even show you when we fly. You put the carb heat like half away or almost away for a couple seconds, turn the governor off, roll the RPMs down, and when you pull the carb heat in, you'll see that without the governor adjusting it, it'll start to settle you to the ground.
Interesting.
Yep, so it is, and it doesn't, it does basically take away from our power because that hot air can't make as much power as the cooler air.
And you've got twin tanks.
Yep.
What sort of range or how long can you fly with full tanks?
So with the bladders, we have bladders on all of ours. You got 9.4 usable in the main, 16.9 usable in, I'm sorry, this is the AUGs, 16.9 in the main. What does that give us? Just about, I think it's 26.3, I believe, sounds right. And 10 gallons an hour, or 10 gallons an hour is what we use for a burn rate.
Right.
So you're looking at about 2 hours of flight time with reserve. Always with aviation, if people don't know already, you are always getting on the ground with extra fuel.
Yeah.
You don't play games. You don't ride the low fuel light all the way to the gas station.
Yeah.
Yep. So just a two-bladed, basically another teeter hinge, similar in design to the main rotor.
Yep.
And all it is it's already what they call a pre-cone, but all we need to do with it is feather it to change the thrust on the tail rotor to counteract the torque from the main rotor. You see here, I mean, even the tail boom is a very simple, lightweight design. They call it a monocoque structure, and that what you see on the skin is its structure. So they time out, they're only good for 2 overhauls, and then you got to buy a new one. But other things, when we pre-flight them, we're looking for any big dents.
Because it would show on the surface.
Yep. Well, not only that, if just knowing how that whole monocoque design works, if you were to just wallop and put a huge dent in there, it might snap like a twig.
And look, LEDs.
Oh yeah,
fancy.
Now we just got to get LED landing lights.
Yeah. It's going to be a struggle. And so, what's it like to start in the winter? Do you have trouble starting them in the winter?
And that's why we have. You can see down in here. Here's the plug for the Tannis system.
Oh, I see.
And what that allows us to do is plug in a block heater and an oil heater to get the temperatures up. It's still not going to be. It's not like starting your like a diesel where you already have heat in the winter, but it'll at least keep the temperature of the engine up enough that we can usually get it started. I have flying last winter. It definitely had some really cold mornings where it just was between battery power.
It was a cold winter.
Yeah, there's some days it's just not even worth even trying.
And this little hole?
So that'd be actually for this is the fan. Pulls air in here, runs down through this orange tube.
Yep.
And this is not a muffler as you think of it. This is, the exhaust goes through here. This is a manifold around it.
Yep.
So it pulls air, pushes air through there, out the other side into the cabin heat for us to be able to heat the cabin.
This is exactly how they do it on a air-cooled Porsche 911 as well.
Yep, no instant heat. As soon as you start the car, it's just like an old Volkswagen.
And probably just the same as a 911 or a Volkswagen. You get the engine smells in the cabin and so forth.
Yeah, we do. And that's, you know, they're nice enough to give us a carbon monoxide light. So.
And let's talk a little bit about the main rotor, which is one of the features of the R22 is just how little inertia's in these rotors, and they've added little weights on the end to help with that. But
and they've also, from my understanding of the newest blades, they've reprofiled it to give it more surface area. And that, the inertia, I mean, I didn't have any experience with the previous blades, but I know talking to the mechanic when they did the first maintenance flight with the new blades, they went to do a hover auto and pulled too early. They weren't used to how much more inertia it had. So apparently they are better than what used to be.
Well, let's talk about an auto rotation, because that's the exciting thing in an R22, isn't it?
Oh
auto rotation, you've got to be on your toes.
Left seat or right seat, it can be very exciting.
How many seconds do you think you've got
in an auto?
In an auto before when you got to get that collective down after the engine failure?
Oh, 1 second.
1 second.
I would say 1 second.
He's not mucking around.
Well, and I can even show you today. It really depends on where that collective's at as well. Because if we're at a low descent collective setting, the RPM decay is much slower than if we're at climb out. Climb out and slow and low in altitude is when a helicopter is really at its most dangerous curve.
And compared to the 44 over there, obviously a much larger, more powerful aircraft. But I think the big difference is the hydraulically assisted controls in the 44, which you don't have in the 22. But not that you really need it, do you?
No, you really don't. And it's I usually tell people when they start really struggling at first, usually I'll have to keep reminding them that just fingertips and tippy toes. That's all you need to do. Be light on everything, relax, because nobody makes good fine inputs when they're all locked up. So really the key is, just a light touch. Focus, look where you're supposed to look, and just feel it out. So it does take some getting used to. I'm sure you remember your days learning to hover, and you're all over the place. And then, as an instructor, you just grab it and stop it. And they're like, I don't know how you just did that.
It's just a pressure often, isn't it? More than a movement.
And well, once you get used to it, once you know what the feet, are working the anti-torque, the cyclic, the collective, after a couple hours, you start to understand, what each one does. You just have to, you don't have to think about what to do. You have to think about what you want the aircraft to do, and it's going to start to do it. So it is very instinctual, I guess, once you get to that point. And it's
said that Frank Robinson never really designed this as a training aircraft.
Nope, no, he was very clear about that. He kind of figured it would be, I guess, I don't know if you pictured, just a whole parking lot full of these things at a lawyer's office or something, and never meant it to be a trainer.
That's what it's become.
Being a helicopter engineer, I think he knew exactly what he was designing with how light it was, with the way the controls were, and then looking at the lighter inertia rotor blades in the beginning with no governor, in its very early days. It was not an amateur aircraft, But the way it was priced and everything and affordable to most, that's eventually where it was going to go. And then a big thing behind, you know, especially helicopter training is cost. Right. So you're going to use the best product available, but ultimately the students have to be able to afford to do the flying. Sure. So yeah, when you look at any of the bigger helicopters out there, the numbers would almost triple instantly to get the same ratings. And having talked to guys with much more experience than me, you know, flying a lot of different platforms for a lot of different people, the ones that have 22 times say it's a good helicopter to train in. Sure. You're going to learn all the basics.
Very good. All right, let's take it for a spin.
All right, let's do it.
So you're just going through the pre-flight?
Yep. So never hurts to use a checklist.
Yep.
Kind of know it by memory now, but checklists are there for a reason to make sure you don't miss anything.
Shall we quickly go over all the internal features here?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So instruments, you've got a couple missing here, and I noticed that you can switch them out depending on the role of the aircraft, can't you?
Yeah, and you could almost fit at least a couple extra, maybe an attitude indicator or a VOR receiver in there if you really wanted to fill the dash.
Yep.
Some of the things that's funny with helicopters, especially this one, it's so light that even this, you know, even just adding these 2 gauges.
Oh, it makes a difference?
Well, it's going to add a couple pounds. It's
Wow.
going to take pounds away from the fuel that we can carry. It's going to change the front CG, even if just by a little bit.
And these are the 2 gauges that are so different than a fixed wing as well.
Yep. So I like to think of, you know, fixed wing guys are so worried about their airspeed because of stall. Well, this is our engine maintains the rotor RPM. Our rotor RPM is ultimately our velocity on the airfoils, on the rotor blades. So this is easily the most critical gauge.
Right.
You know, normal operating 101 to 104. You won't see swings much beyond that in any which way when the governor's working properly. In an auto, so disengaging the engine, you know, rolling the engine throttle down, using the air to drive the rotors. Basically, we're allowed from 90 up to 110. 90 on the low side, we're getting into potential low RPM blade stall. And over the 110 mark, we're talking about more centrifugal force than the rotor blade was designed to handle. So the fun part of being a CFI when doing autos is teaching a student and watching a student to make sure that we are staying in that proper range. Yeah, the overspeed hazard can be quite stressful, but never lose sight of what can happen on the low side as well. All the rest of it is, you know, just basic stuff. Engine gauges, fuel gauge, all required.
Talk to us about the manifold pressure.
Good call. So pretty much any car could have this. Most of them don't nowadays. Basically, this is a measure of how much air we're pulling in the engine. Therefore, it can be basically used to determine how much power you're pulling. So let's just take a look at the temperature for the day.
Yeah, piss off, old man, with your noisy plane.
Right. So a day like today, with our temperature and our pressure altitude, we're looking at about 24, I'd say about 24 and a half max 5-minute takeoff, as they call it. So we can pull that for 5 minutes. And then minus 1 inch, so 23 and a half would give us our max continuous power. So really what that's saying, what that ends up equating to is 124 horsepower max continuous or 131 horsepower for 5 minutes. And to me, usually the way how I fly this, I don't use that 5-minute takeoff for anything other than what's called the max performance takeoff. So
and you got a clutch here as well, which is different than most aircraft.
Yep. So with that, I'll just save a little power. The clutch is disengaged right now. The belts are loose. And what it is a clutch mechanism that pushes the upper sheave, as we call it, up to tension the belts. The only reason this is here is basically so that we can start the engine without the load of the rotor system on it as well.
And down here, interestingly, this is how you stop the engine, isn't it? With a mixture full lean.
So compared to a car, where you turn the ignition off, it shuts everything off. This is basically the mixture level.
Yeah, and right next to it is the trim for the. So there has to be something here to prevent you from pulling the wrong one, isn't there?
Yeah, and little things like little processes like making sure it's fully seated.
Yep.
Then installing the mixture guard. The other one is Robinson talks about how if you were sitting on your seat, you should reach around the left side of the cyclic, ensure that it's the round knob before pulling in cyclic trim, which all that is just a bungee to stabilize the cyclic.
Yeah, whereas on other helicopters you'll see a hat on here that helps you adjust the...
Yep, for the electric driven trim. There is an old war story from this school years ago about somebody pulling the mixture in flight, and the CFI was able to establish an auto, push the mixture back in, and get an air restart.
Oh, really?
And do a power.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
That would be an entertaining flight.
Yep.
And of course down here is the carb heat, as we talked about before as well.
Yep. And that's pulling it full up, is we're now getting all of our air pulled through off that heated manifold off the exhaust. And it is filtered air. Some airplanes don't have filtered carb heat. We do. I don't know how airplanes use carb heat. I just heard it's different.
Yeah, you very rarely use carb heat in a fixed wing.
Yeah, and even today, because we still got visible moisture hanging around.
Yep.
I'll pull it in full, and then we'll see what's going on.
And the other unique thing is, this is classic Robinson, where everything's feels a little flimsy, like the door handles are just this little rod that holds it in. And the lights are all from the 1950s.
Yep.
Yeah, nothing really changes in these aircraft, does it?
Nope, it's very simple layout. There's no reason really to change it from here. Good.
All right, let's start her up.
All right, ready to make that Volkswagen sound.
Yep.
All right, check. And just like any good aviation start, make sure the area is clear and clear left, clear on the right.
We're clear on the right.
Clear!
So you're starting it just like a regular piston engine.
Yep, and this one's got the primer, so it's usually pretty easy to get it going.
All right, so the primer down here?
Yep, it should be down and locked.
It is, yep.
Just get the engine RPM up, 50 to 60.
So the blades are turning even with the clutch disengaged?
Yeah, so there's a little bit of tension on them, just enough to get them going. So air pressure's good, starter on, line is off, clutch is engaged, alternator's on, level is off, and we're charging.
Okay.
Yep, right.
So you engage the clutch there, so you're not having to feather the clutch, it's just engaging and you're just giving a little bit more throttle once it engages. Is that how it works?
Yep. Yeah, and you'll see as that load increases on the engine, it'll drag the engine RPM down. So I'll just give her a slight increase in the throttle as the rotors start to spin up the speed. Any minute now we should see the rotor tachometer come alive.
I see,
There it is.
And so these two will sit side by side for the rest of the flight, presumably, unless we go to do an auto.
Yep. So that's, that's the needles joined, so car reads in. Now we're really just waiting on the clutch light to go out.
So we're waiting on the clutch to finish engaging?
Yep. Fully engaged, we'll see it. There it goes. I'll check to make sure the breaker didn't pop, and that's not the reason that it went off.
Yep.
Then I am cleared to roll up to the warm-up RPM of 70-75.
And how long do we sit at warm-up?
Yeah, I mean, we're cold. I got carb heat pulled in. It's probably another 30 seconds. I just need to see...
movement on the cylinder head team.
Yep. And the next one, if you want to look at the tachometer, this is what they call the sprag clutch check.
Yep.
So I'm going to count it down, and I'm going to roll the throttle briskly off. We're going to see the engine needle split away from the rotor needle. And I'm also going to add right pedal, because around here, when it's winter, if you're not careful, you can get a little bit of a yaw. Sprag checking, 3, 2, 1.
There we go.
Good split. So we know our freewheeling unit's working, which is critical. Going up to 100%. So the governor that we were talking about.
Yes, at what point do you add the governor?
So it's going to take over automatic. So right now it's on. Yep. So at 80%, it'll try and grab it. So that's Boom, and then it grabs the throttle, and then I'm going to restrict it.
So there it goes on its own.
Yep, but I'm going to restrict it, keep the manifold about 15. And this is
and you can see that clutch light coming on to adjust again.
Yep. And usually about just controlling that torque up is more of a consistency for the winter. If you let that governor just grab it and you're sitting on ice on this thing, it'll spin from the torque change. So.
And the governor switch is only on this collector?
Correct. Yep, and it's right on the end there.
Yep.
So anything, you know, if you go to check carb heat, I see your hand go down to carb heat, I'll be looking at the governor off light, because that's an easy one. Inadvertently turning the governor off can lead to some big maintenance issues.
Okay. So. Because of overspeed more than anything.
Usually that's the big one. So now the last thing I got to check is I'm going to increase collective just a little bit. I got to get it off the sensor. Right about there, and now I'm looking at the rotor tack, or the engine rotor tack.
Right.
I'm reducing the RPM down to 97. 97, low RPM warning horn, low RPM warning light come on. Now I relax the grip, let the throttle roll it off. She goes off at 97, that's functioning, and the governor has it stabilized top of the green. Cool, ready to fly?
Ready to fly.
Alright, we're clear on the left, and we're clear on the right. Looks good up above. No warning lights, RPMs are in the green, 1, 2, 3 engine gauges in the green, and we'll leave carb heat full in until we pick up. So now what I'm doing is we're gently increasing collective. I got this thing also has a correlator, and it can pull in too much throttle, so I got to give the governor time to reduce a little. But then at about 18 we're stable, and my eyes go deep outside, and what I'm doing is fixing small motions. As she starts to get light on the skids, we're looking for little motions. There's a little bit of one. A little bit of there we go.
Yeah, and you classically pull the cyclic back as soon as we lift it off.
Yep. Yeah, and I could just feel I think we were just caught on a little bit of pavement, so a quick hover check. And because of that carb heat, we're right up at 24 inches.
Yeah, so we're at max power basically.
Yeah, so it's, but if we were to push carb heat away. So then I'll just do a quick check over here. And we'll look at the pad. I always think of this as my last chance to make sure nothing was leaking while we were running.
I see, yes.
Yep, good over there. Cool. Handling traffic 27, November Echo transition in pad 1 over to the letters. Yeah, so if you want to ID carb heat, I'm going to have you put it away, and I'm going to...
Okay, carb heat coming off.
Yep, go ahead. And we'll see that manifold pressure kind of come back down. Now I'm also going to drop into a nice stable hover.
Oh, there we go.
2 feet.
So this is an in-ground effect hover?
Yep, we're in the 2-foot hover check.
Yep.
Looking for, we got about an inch in reserve, so a little heavy on the load, but just shy of what we would need. We're looking for about 2 inches of reserve.
Is it because you got fat people on board?
The fuel.
WR, thank you.
Yeah, we're clear out there. Clear out there. We'll see what the ceilings are at. So we'll just take the runway and just kind of talk through whole transition into forward flight.
Boy, that's a pretty ragged runway they've got there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, so if you want to just ID carb heat, pull in about maybe an inch.
An inch?
Yeah, I just want to get her up to 10. Yeah, there we go. Clear left. Clear on the right. Yeah, that's fine. Yep.
So you're trying to keep the carb heat away from that yellow.
Yep. I don't like to flirt with the yellow. 10 gives me a nice margin, and I'll be easy on the power. Ellington Traffic Helicopter 27 November Echo is taking the active 01. Departing left close traffic, Ellington. No warning lights. RPMs are good. 1, 2, 3 in the green. Carb heat's out of the yellow. A radio call has been made. Alright, so now I'll talk you through is basically from about a 5-foot hover, I'm pulling no more power in on the collective. I'm just going to feed it forward. Just keep walking her forward. We're going to get to a point where we're going to get a little extra airflow. So now we're starting, and now it transitions.
Yeah.
So that's what basically gives us what they call effective translational lift. And that because of that forward airflow, we now have improved angle of attack on the rotor blades. So now, if you look at the manifold pressure, it dropped down.
Oh, yeah.
The governor reduced it because it doesn't need as much power to maintain that rotor RPM. So now we're down to 22.5, so I'm going to pull it back into max continuous. I'm pitched for 60 knots on climb out, and this gives us the best overall average. So
that's our best climb?
Yeah, so 53, and she's just fighting me on it a little bit. There she goes on the wind. 53 is best climb. A little bit better to be closer to 60 and be on the front side of the power curve, as they say. And basically the theory being is while we're low and pulling a lot of pitch, we want to make sure that we at least have airspeed. If we lose an engine, I have to dump the collective and fight to get the RPMs back, but at least I already have airspeed.
Yeah, so you could trade that forward airspeed for...
Yep, for RPM.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. It's yeah, you can trade one for the other in a sense. It's energy. Arlington traffic 27 November Echoes left downwind 01 Arlington. Oh yeah, you can see all that mist off in the distance.
Yeah.
There's our pattern height. We'll get some.
Okay, traffic around 5 mile final 105.
Carby's full and the warning lights green.
Yeah, once you get going, she's pretty smooth.
Yeah, this one's not bad at all. Some of them still have some shakes to them.
Yep.
Depends on blade dirtiness. Yeah, it really depends. Clear. Nice low clouds. Yeah, so what I'll actually do is I'll shoot a quick approach in the south platform that we have on the south side. And you'll see it in view in this little cut in the trees coming up. Ellington traffic 27 November Echoes left base turning to final south platform 01 Ellington. Yeah, so you see that little platform just on this side of the tree line from the hangar.
Okay.
This is our little...
I see what you're talking about, yep.
That's our little home base confined area, so right now I'll just slow the airspeed down. Clutch 2, 3, 4, 5, out. So biggest hazard with a steep approach in a helicopter, I'm sure you remember, is that settling with power.
Yes.
So when we talk about that, 300 feet descent or more, which I have.
Yep.
But I got 30 knots.
Right. So you want to keep it above 30 knots at such a steep approach, right?
Yep. And the other one is, what we're really worried about is ETL. So as we look at this, and I'm just going to split the difference on these two buildings. Especially since there's guys working, I don't want to overfly them if I can avoid it. So basically, if you got to drop like a rock, you got to do it with ETL.
Yep,
and the trim strings are still up. And we're starting to feel a shudder as we come back out of it. And if you could just push carb heat away.
Carb heat coming off.
And there's that shudder. It means we're riding ETL. So I can ride this all the way in, but the other thing I'm doing is I'm now pulling in enough manifold pressure that our descent rate is now 200.
Yeah, we're using no power.
Yep.
Now it's coming
and now
in.
It'll start to come up.
Yep.
But, and this way, you know, a little less steep at the end, but I've taken my time to get into this confined area. Right. I didn't go bonsaiing in there.
Yep.
Especially with the obstructions that are around it. And that's our little training platform on the south side.
It's cool, huh?
So the other good thing is, seems a little weird, I'm sure, if you look out front, but this is a good one to train people to really read their rotor disc. And where is it? We're close to that bush, but we got room.
Yeah.
So then when you come out of here, the big one is some clear left all the way to the tail. A little side step. And I'm going to turn the tail over the platform because I knew that was clear.
I see, yeah. Yeah, that's a great exercise.
Yep.
Now you just have to piss this farmer off.
Well, they don't care. Because now what I'll do is...
hop over onto the runway?
Yeah, well, I'm going to take the east grass over to the north fields, and then if you're good with it, I'll let you do some hover.
It should be interesting. 20 years since I've flown a R22.
Still a helicopter, so clearing the street. I got no one else around. Looks good. Ellington traffic 27 November Echoes, air taxiing from the south fields over the east grass to the north fields, Ellington. So another kind of prime maneuver for helicopters is what we call the air taxi. 50 knots, 50 feet. This kind of bridges the gap between a departure and transitioning like a runway environment. So what we don't want to do is be too too low and high airspeed. We also don't want to be too high and too low airspeed, so this bridges the gap. And this is basically our north training field.
Right.
We have anything from slopes, you know, these areas in here to work. Just pull in just a little smidge of carb heat.
Carb heat, a little bit.
Yeah, that'll set us good.
Yeah, like it's right on the edge there, isn't it?
Yep. Never know. And there's definitely moisture in the air. So.
Yeah.
And that's not telling us the moisture. That's just telling us the temperature that it's seeing. So. All right. Yeah. So.
All right.
If you want to try and stow that camera, and
I'll put this camera down on the floor here.
Yeah. So we'll do it the good old classic way. Start with the pedals first.
Pedals coming on.
Yeah, and be real light on the pedals.
Yep, real light.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make collective changes, and you can actually feel along on the collective.
Okay.
And I recommend basically pulling your fingers on the bottom of the bar, not the throttle itself.
Okay.
That way you don't risk over gripping the throttle. Yep. So now, yeah, you have the pedals, and I'm going to make some collective changes, and we're going to see how
I go on the pedals. Whoa, yeah.
Yep. And that's why it's a good.
Guys, just like when I first learned to fly, this was a nightmare.
Yeah, it was good. Yeah, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some torque changes.
Yep.
I just want you to keep the nose pointing in the same direction. Very good. We're going to see that pedal coming in.
Yep.
And that's usually these two together.
Yep.
Are their own little trouble. You probably remember that.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the cyclic is its own other world of trouble.
It's getting your subconscious mind to learn all this.
Yep.
So you're not having to overthink it.
Well, and anybody looking into flight training, just know right off the bat, if someone didn't tell you this when it comes to hovering, the most important thing is eyes outside looking. You know, I'm not looking at the tree line.
Yeah.
I'm looking way beyond it. I'm reading what the nose is doing off that center beam.
Yeah.
And the next important one is to relax. You make finer, smoother inputs when you're relaxed. Yeah, so, and kind of, so what I'll show right here is I'm coming on, I'm going to lock the pedals.
Okay.
Or about 2 foot. There we go. So I got the pedals locked.
Yep.
So what we can do is if we wanted to face around the other way.
You just pull in power and it goes around.
Yep, and then when I want to stop, I just reduce it a little. Yep, and that's kind of one of the ways that I'll start with people that, no, it's the torque that steers the nose. They give us the pedals to control that.
Right.
Yep, so they're good, you're back, and now I'll give you the collective and the pedals.
Okay.
And then, yeah, whenever you're ready, or feel ready for the cyclic, I can pass that over to you. So especially with how responsive this thing is and the pendulum that you get into, what I like to tell people is, here's the neutral.
Yep.
So take it without putting any pressure on it.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah.
There you go.
There we go.
Still a Robbie.
Yeah, still a Robbie. I'm just going to drop a bit of power there.
There you go.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, bring a little bit more power in. Yeah. Hovering.
Still got
Look at
it.
that.
You still got it. And you know, and even if anybody can't see on the video, you got your fingertips on there. Yeah. That's one of the most important ones. Don't worry about reaching the comms button until you can hover the thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yep, being real smooth on all the controls. Yep, nice and light.
We'll come around.
Pretty nice, very nice.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
You thought you were going to be rusty. No, this is, I personally, I mean, they say it's like riding a bike.
Yeah.
This is much deeper than this. You got to connect to these machines.
Yeah,
You got to just relax and think less. And that's what makes it click. And then, so some of the other things I'll kind of show you is, I want you to try and look out at something maybe 2 or 3 feet in front of the skid.
Yep.
And hold your hover. And we'll watch what happens to it.
Yeah, yeah.
And as soon as it starts to get weird on you, just get your eyes way outside.
Yeah.
And you can stabilize.
Yeah.
You get to you get to the higher levels, right? Yeah. Where, say, landing on a dolly or doing some other things out there where you actually do have to look at the ground.
Yeah.
It's like learning to hover all over again.
Right, right.
I can do pretty well with it. My most stable hovering is when my eyes are outside.
Right.
But when it comes to putting it on a dolly or when you got tight clearance on the skids or anything like that, or you want to make sure you're safe to set down where you are, you got to look down, and as soon as you do, it's never your best work. Right,
Yep,
I'll take all three.
All three. You've got the controls.
I got all three.
Get the camera going again.
Yeah, so what else do you think the folks at home want to see?
Oh, I think we've done most of it. It's yeah, it's been great. You're great on camera too.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Yeah.
The only other thing is I know I think you all heard it at the school from every one of us, from the CFIs to the students, that we've seen your videos. So
Okay.
if you want me to do a quick departure and come back in for an auto and power recovery.
Yeah, let's do that.
I think it's good for people to see it. I will say right now, there's no way it's going to be my finest one because I'm on camera now. So.
You never know.
Yeah, well, as long as you understand that,
Hey, if you walk away from a auto rotation,
yeah,
it's a good one.
well, just as long as people at home know, the horn comes on in 97.
Right.
We're fine in 97. It's just a warning. All right, clear, clear. See no one out there. Clear left. Clear right. And just give me a quick clear out there. The other thing I'm going to show you is kind of the pinnacle of that torque exercise. Like traffic, no warning lights, RPMs, 1, 2, 3 in green, good. And carpet, I like it. Like traffic, 27 November Echoes, Spartan 01 for left close traffic, Ellington. So, down and hover, about a foot, slowly start walking her back. Just backwards. Then, I hold the pedal straight, and I pull in collective. And without even over pulling power, we snapped right into ETL.
That is cool.
And I didn't even have to touch the pedals. So, really, anybody looking into getting into helicopters, when you're frustrated in your first 30 hours, just know that everything affects everything. Every input you make on one control affects the other. So, have patience and understand the relationships going on, and it'll already be a lot easier. And then it's just experience too, though. Clear, clear.
So talk us through what you're about to do with the auto rotation.
I will. Like traffic, 27 November Echo will be left base to high short final, hard surface, 01 Ellington. Alright, so looking for, I'm going to get the speed back up there. And at about 70 knots. So I'll be going down on the collective. You can see you'll see on the cameras it'll be a lot of right pedal as we take out all that torque. And then I got to come aft cyclic to keep the nose up. Alright, keep it in trim. And we'll be going for about midfield. So the entry will be coming up in 3, 2, 1. Down, collective, right pedal, roll. And then I pulled in a little pitch. And now we're stable.
Look at that. 70 knots.
Yeah, we're looking at midfield as our spot. That was the goal anyways.
Yeah, you're looking good.
Yeah, I think it looks good. Spot's not moving, that's always a good indicator. Alright, so I start the flare a little high for a power recovery, so I'm going to level. Alright, basically watch me turn this airspeed into RPM energy.
Look at that. I don't know, that was pretty good. Pretty smooth.
I'll take it. So, and it's always good not to do anything too, maintenance-y on the.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is we can't really show people like kind of the fine edge.
Yep.
Because it can get away so fast. So there's really no point in me.
And what you don't see on the camera as well is, as soon as you bottom that collective, your stomach's coming up into your throat. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you want to just push, you can push the carpet away. I'll just save that power. There we go. Yeah, and it definitely gets better with time.
Yeah.
So I guess really the last one I can kind of show you on the way back. We call it quick stop. And it's basically what people think of as helicopters landings are supposed to look like, which is not your traditional approach at all. Right about here, okay, so I'm going to lead with collective. It's going to be right pedal, and all I'm doing is holding altitude with cyclic until she stops.
Nice.
And there's that nice nose up, quick stop. Dropping the tail, whatever you want to call it. Alright, clear out there. Clear across. Always look both ways before crossing the street, kids. Like traffic 27 November Echo is clearing the active back to the letters.
So cool. Yeah, I mean,
Very cool.
the only other thing I could say is maybe a hover auto, which that's definitely no promise on that one. So you're good with, remember those?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, so I'll set up into the wind.
Okay.
And just for us.
Yeah, this is certainly a lot easier in a large aircraft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've heard. Yeah, and especially with this one, and the hardest part is the weight to pull.
Yep.
But basically what I'm going to do, just to explain to people, is I'm going to roll the throttle off, and we have basically what's called an over travel, which is going to disengage the correlator. Take the engine right out of the equation because I'm going to wait for the aircraft to settle and pull the remaining collective. Yeah, I'll just guard the collective. I'm going to crack the door so I don't... There we go.
Okay.
The CFI trick to hover autos. Alright, so and my eyes will be way outside. Gotta be deep, gotta be relaxed, gotta wait for your moment. And I'll count it down. And it's gonna be right pedal, wait for it to settle, and then use the rest of the collective to cushion. Hover auto in 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
I told you one of those wasn't going to be the best one. Well, and she's fine, and honestly...
And they take a beating, these aircraft.
Yeah, and honestly, with this ship in particular, she hits like a hammer.
Yeah, yeah.
So any of those
it's just that there's no energy in those rotor blades.
No, and I probably pulled a little too early, so I'm okay.
Yep.
I'm okay with looking not perfect on the screen. That's right, YouTube. I said that. I'm human. Right. Good.
Very well done.
And the other thing is, I could have held the yaw a little bit better, but if anything else, my students will see this and they won't feel so bad. So it's totally worth it.
Well, I can't thank you enough for taking us for a flight today. And
I had good fun.
Anyone in the Connecticut or North Connecticut, around Massachusetts, so forth, interested in taking some helicopter lessons, Northeast Helicopters, I couldn't recommend you guys more. It's a lot of fun,
We'll find an excuse to get together again.
Yeah, I think so. This has been a lot of fun.
Maybe next time it'll be on me. How's that?
That'd be great. Yep, and the R22, very fun little ship. If you're going to get into helicopters, you're almost certainly going to be flying an R22.
I would say so, and even I would say any of the CFI jobs out there, more than likely, are going to be looking for someone that could teach in a 22. So,
very good.
Be under 240 pounds and get most of your training done in a 22 because it's going to save money and make you a better pilot.
Yeah.